From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The heat is on, and so are the irrigation pivots in Louisiana.
We tend to say we need about 3 to 5 in a normal year.
How farmers in Louisiana are keeping their crops alive, while drought forces some Texas ranchers to make a difficult decision. As inflation hits a new 40-year high, is the end in sight?
And I think this keeps fueling this dollar to these new 20-year highs.
That's right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. New numbers show inflation didn't just continue last month, it accelerated. With the Consumer Price Index rising 1.3% over May, the push came from record gas prices, soaring rents, and higher grocery bills. But what does it mean for agriculture? AgDay's Michelle Rook has details.
Clinton, Wednesday's CPI for June was above expectations at 9.1%, a new peak with inflation the highest since November 1981. This is continuing to impact money flow in the outside and agricultural commodity markets. It may also trigger the Fed's next move on monetary policy. With 40-year highs in inflation, the commodities sector is seeing recent fund liquidation on fears of a slowdown in demand or demand destruction, and there may be evidence that's already happening. But why was the CPI so much higher than the 8.8% expected?
I think the key there is energy prices. Energy prices by themselves made up half of the monthly increase, and the report doesn't factor in the decline in energy prices that had occurred in July.
So is it possible the 9.1% is the highest inflation rate printed?
I would say yes, just because I trade commodities all day, and none of the commodities that generated that 9.1 are currently happening.
Yet the fear is that the CPI number gives the Fed ammunition to raise rates in its July meeting. In fact, the markets are now indicating high odds of 3/4 to a full point rate increase, and Canada also raised their rate by more than an expected 1%.
Yes, I think this helps the Fed solidify another 0.75% increase in their monetary rate, in their interest rate, essentially into the United States long bond. And I think this keeps fueling this dollar to these new 20-year highs.
However, Grisafi says with the Fed signals after the July meeting will be even more important for the markets.
Stick around 45 minutes later for the meeting, and then what Fed Chairman Powell says after that, you could see him raise 1.0 and the Dow could close up 1,200 that day. If they raise and say their job is done and they're going to observe for a while, that would add a spark to the markets.
And hopefully the shock would cool the recessionary fears that have melted down the commodities sector and other markets recently. However, both Grisafi and Zuzolo say until then, it's hard to predict if the hedge funds are done liquidating in these markets, and they point out that speculators usually push the trend farther than the fundamentals dictate.
All right, thanks, Michelle. But there is finally some relief at the gas pump for Americans. AAA reporting the current national average is $4.63. That's down 2 cents from earlier this week and down from a month ago when it was over $5 a gallon. Now, diesel, it's averaging $5.61, down about 20 cents from the high set last month. Still, gas is far higher than a year ago, but the drop could help slow inflation for July and possibly August. USDA's latest supply-demand report was not good news for the cotton crop, much of it caught up in drought conditions. And with the latest forecast, economists think the crop could continue to disappear. USDA's report on Tuesday showing an increase in planted acres, but it also comes with higher abandonment due to deepening drought in Texas. The harvested area is to be nearly 600,000 acres lower this month, or 32%, which is the third highest on record. The current record was set during the drought of 2011, when abandonment hit 36%. And with triple-digit heat and no rain in the forecast for the High Plains, one Texas A&M economist we spoke to expects USDA's abandonment forecast to grow.
As bad of a start as the crop had, and as bad as the weather rain forecast looks going forward, it wouldn't surprise me at all for them to bump it up, for the actual abandonment rate to climb from here. And, you know, whether it'll exceed 36% is anybody's guess, but this is one of those historically very bad years.
USDA also lowering its export forecast by 500,000 bales, but Robinson says fundamentals still don't explain why the December cotton contract has dropped a whopping 31% since its high of $1.32 set back on May 17th. Tuesday's WASDE report also showed U.S. sorghum production was down 9 million bushels from June at 372 million bushels. Now that's also down from last year's 448 million bushel crop. It's a result of 1 million fewer acres being planted this spring and drought in some of those key producing states. However, Nebraska bucking the trend as farmers planted more acres than 2021, and so far the crop is holding up at 55% good to excellent despite those areas of drought.
Yeah, sorghum crop actually looks really good across the state. Now in southwest Nebraska is where we have the bulk of our crop, and of course we could use a little more rain. It's always dry here. The sorghum does really well in those conditions. But even over in the eastern part of the state, sorghum's looking pretty good.
Now the June acreage report showed 280,000 acres of sorghum in Nebraska will be harvested for grain, which is up 50,000 acres from 2021. Bloom says that's a reflection of the strong market. USDA is releasing more information about counties that are eligible for double crop coverage in 2023. The agency creating these maps, one for double cropping of grain sorghum, the other for soybeans. Now for sorghum, at least 870 counties will have expanded or streamlined coverage. For soybeans, it's 681 counties. You'll remember back in May, President Biden announced a plan to increase food production in the nation by increasing the number of counties eligible for double cropping insurance so farmers could reuse their land for planting in the same year. Some areas of the country could really use some rain right now to help those summer crops along. Meteorologist Matt Yarosovic joins us with an update. Matt.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. And as we kind of take a look here at our root zone, things have changed just a little bit over the past week, and we've got a little bit more moisture in parts of the Corn Belt, which didn't see a whole lot over the past few weeks. Still some abnormally dry spots, though, in the upper Midwest, and also looking at parts of Texas, seeing some improving conditions there. We're going to see more precipitation over at least the next 10 days. The next week to week and a half are going to be pretty wet from the Rockies on to the east, but we're also going to see some higher elevation rain showers there. Very hot in the west, and that will create some of those afternoon thunderstorms. But if we look to not this upcoming week, but 2 weeks from now, we're going to be watching for another very dry week for parts of the center of the country all the way into the upper Midwest and parts of the Corn Belt. And more rain likely will be kept along the southeast and east coast, and then in parts of the Four Corners region as well. And take a look at this. A few months back, I planted a garden, and now we've got a lot of veggies beginning to come out of that very same garden. The large zucchini, along with some smaller cucumbers I harvested just a few days ago. Our peppers and tomatoes are almost ready, and we have sweet corn just a few weeks away as well. I'm looking forward to enjoying that garden for the rest of the season. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Happening right now, talks among Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and the UN about getting grain out of Ukraine appear to be progressing. They're happening in Istanbul. Officials are working to resume Ukrainian grain exports via the Black Sea port of Odessa. Now, it's reported that Turkish officials say a framework deal has been reached. A UN official says more technical work needs to take place before the deal is done. Now, the Turkish defense minister said the deal would be signed when the parties meet again next week. Surging inflation and rising consumer prices couldn't keep commodities down on Wednesday. We'll have details coming up next. And later, a lack of forage, heat, and dry weather are pushing cattle to town. We'll take a closer look. That's ahead.
AgDay is brought to you by the End Zone by Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your End Zone fan control by July 31st and receive $200 off.
The latest inflation numbers couldn't keep commodities down on Wednesday as grains quickly transitioned from red to green despite pressure on the Dow. Michelle Rook joins us once again with more.
Matt Bennett with agmarket.net joins us with market analysis, and we saw mostly higher day on Wednesday except for cotton and wheat. I guess as far as the row crop sector, did we just see a bounce on an oversold status because the forecast looked maybe just a little drier?
You know, you came in here on Tuesday with the report, and actually it wasn't negative, so to speak. I mean, it was kind of neutral, a shade negative, if you will, but then we just continued to pile on the losses. You'd have thought we'd have had some sort of a bounce here in today, because that seemed a little bit extreme, quite frankly. Came in the morning, and the CPI numbers come out at 9.1%, and all of a sudden the corn market goes from up a little to down 6 cents, and it looks like they kind of sold that news, whereas they used to buy inflationary news as far as commodities were concerned. But we did see a bounce. It wasn't anything extravagant. You know, I don't really want to go down 44 cents one day and up 15 and call it a win, or go up 12 the next day and call it a win. But regardless, I'll take an up day.
So with the fact that the market was able to hold together with that CPI news so bearish, do you think the funds are done liquidating here?
That's a tough call. I mean, to me, I think the funds, it's almost one of those deals where they had a story to buy earlier on. Everyone felt strongly that inflation was going to take hold. It looked like weather was an issue. Now, what do they have to buy? Well, you know, inflation at 9.1%, I think most people felt like that was a little overdone. Maybe it was a little stale as far as the numbers were concerned. But if I'm the funds, I'm sitting here looking at this weather thinking, if this does come to pass where the Western Corn Belt has this heat and dryness over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on which forecaster you look at, I'll tell you what, it could have a big impact on production at a time when we really, quite frankly, don't have a whole lot of spare room.
That's right. And we haven't really respected that so much. How much weather premium do you think we need to put in these markets to be comfortable?
Boy, I really struggle to think that this D's corn market can eclipse what we did on Sunday night. You know, maybe you get into the 650s again. I don't know. As far as beans are concerned, maybe you get back over $14. But let's face it, most people feel confident that we're going to have enough to get by for another year. You got to think about how much South American production is going to come online. And you've got to ask yourself, is Ukraine corn and wheat really going to hit the market? Because a lot of folks are feeling more confident every day that it's going to, at least to some degree, hit the world market.
Yeah, that seems to be dragging down the wheat market for sure. Thanks so much for your analysis, Matt Bennett, Ag Market Not. Full analysis at agweb.com or AgDay coming up.
To contact Matt Bennett at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. AgDay is brought to you by MetLife Investment Management's Agricultural Finance Group. MetLife Investment Management is positioned to help you grow your business with a competitive farm, ranch, and agribusiness loan. To learn more, visit investments.metlife.com/agriculture.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us, starting with the jet stream here, Matt. And it looks like kind of what we call a dome of heat over the southwest there.
Yeah, and it's been kind of sitting there over the last few days, and it's not going anywhere, although it is giving parts of the Great Lakes and parts of the Corn Belt a little bit of a break from that heat and humidity. And just looking at the jet stream on Thursday, you can really kind of tell where that kind of dip in the jet stream is, coming right through parts of the Great Lakes and into interior New England. That's going to keep things a little unsettled here and could even bring some more rain there through the end of the week in parts of the upper Midwest, parts of the Corn Belt that really need it. But here's that dome of heat that Clinton mentioned back here to the south and west, and really making it all the way up to southern parts of Canada, dealing with temperatures in the 80s and 90s all the way up into the Dakotas, and some triple digits down across the southwest. Still dealing, though, with a couple of higher elevation and afternoon pop-up showers and thunderstorms there in the west. But notice as we put this into motion through Friday and through the weekend, this dome of heat doesn't really go anywhere. That ridge stays pretty strong there in the west, even with another likely system coming in as we head into next week. But keeping it still, that little dip in the jet stream off to the east may hold off that higher heat there in parts of the Great Lakes and New England, but also keep it a little unsettled there as we head into next week before it does look like that ridge starts to break down just a little bit, maybe get some relief from that higher heat. But for this afternoon, still looking at temperatures all the way up into parts of Kansas and Nebraska. Could be topping out near triple digits, and even that heat index will be a little bit higher than that, keeping it very humid, and that keeps those temperatures in the 70s and even low 80s for the overnight lows, and then we're right back into the upper 90s and close to those triple digits for much of tomorrow afternoon. Temperatures in the southwest still extremely hot. Take a look at that. 110 tomorrow in Yuma, 110 later on this afternoon. It's going to be just the same as we head through tomorrow, and hundreds in parts of the San Joaquin Valley. And then hot and humid across the south, and dealing with still some of those scattered showers and storms with that kind of stalled out front. It's not going anywhere. It's keeping around the cloud cover, the chances for stalled out showers and thunderstorms, producing some heavier rainfall. And as that hangs around, just a system here coming through the upper Midwest, which could produce some much needed rain there in the Corn Belt, especially through parts of Saturday or Friday and into Saturday, before we just watch out west with high pressure in control. Not a ton of rainfall, but most of it coming in the south and east, and we'll continue to keep an eye on rainfall and those drought conditions as we head through this afternoon, and we'll keep you updated on that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Mariana, Florida, scattered thunderstorms, a high near 88 degrees. 82 in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, mostly sunny and pretty warm out there. And then Amarillo, Texas, sunny and hot, a high near 99.
Registration is open for the 2022 Pro Farmer Crop Tour. Join our team as we gain insight on the 2022 growing season in person or online. Visit profarmercroptour.com/register to select the stop nearest you.
In rural Texas, some roads are dealing with a lot of traffic. The reason? Ranchers are selling a lot of cattle right now. Just look at this long line outside of the Emory, Texas livestock auction. It seems to go on forever. Now, Texas Farm Bureau says ranchers are selling cattle because of the drought conditions, which is creating a shortage of hay and water. So ranchers are left with few choices except to bring them to market right now. They say more than 4 times the normal number of cattle are arriving at some auctions as part of weekly sales. The latest drought monitor shows that 86% of the state is in some kind of drought, with 45% in extreme drought. As cattle go to market, there's no shortage of global demand. The latest numbers put U.S. beef exports at new record highs. The latest numbers for May from the U.S. Meat Export Federation show shipments of beef set new records for both volume and value in May. Sales topping $1 billion for the 4th time this year. Now, the U.S. shipped 135,000 metric tons in May, just above year-ago levels, at more than 20% higher in value, breaking the record set back in March of this year. Now, so far this year, exports are up 4% in volume, with the biggest customers being South Korea, Japan, and China, Hong Kong. Taiwan, the Caribbean, Middle East, and Central America also seeing strong demand. Now, exports of pork, well, they were down more than 20% through May. Hot, dry weather makes for a challenging growing season. We'll see how farmers in Louisiana are protecting their yield with help from irrigation systems in the country.
Find farm equipment on Machinery Pete's July 19th online auction. No reserve, no buyer fees. Start bidding now at auctions.machinerypete.com.
It's been an extraordinarily hot and dry summer so far for much of Louisiana, causing many farmers to irrigate their fields. But they are due for some rain this week. And as Craig Gautreaux reports, in some years, irrigation can mean the difference between a successful crop or a crop failure there in the deep south.
On many Louisiana farms, irrigation equipment has been running nearly non-stop. In Shreveport, the city recorded its hottest June day ever, leading many farmers in the area to stage more irrigation events on their crops than normal.
We tend to say we need about 3 to 5 in a normal year, and then like this year, we're looking at possibly 8 to 10.
Farmers use 3 primary energy sources to power their irrigation equipment: propane, diesel, and electricity. Before this year, the average cost of an irrigation event was estimated at $12 an acre. But with soaring energy costs, it will be much more.
With fuel prices today, if you're running off a diesel, that $12 could easily be $24.
The 2 primary methods for irrigation are plastic piping and pivot irrigation. Advancements in technology are helping make irrigation more efficient and reduce water usage.
There's a lot of technology coming out with pivots, automating pivots and making them variable rate so that you can water different parts of the field differently with one machine.
In some years, irrigation isn't necessary, but in dry years, it is essential in making a successful crop.
For example, soybeans will see a 20 to 30 bushel per acre increase from non-irrigated to irrigated.
While only about 5% of the state's sugarcane crop is irrigated, as the cane belt extends northward, Davis Conger believes this number will have to grow. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gotro reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day. Farm Country.